Hello, everybody. My name is Ending Zhang, and today I will be the first speaker for the side proposition on the topic the voting age should be lowered to 16. My first contention is expected to follow the laws but can't change them. My reasoning is we believe the voting age should be lowered to 16 because 16-year-olds are already expected to follow the law, so it can only be fair to let them have a say in changing them as well. Because if they can't, it makes them unfair for them to think that some laws are wrong, but they can't do anything to change it. This is not fair because 16-year-olds are following the law and doing everything that they're supposed to do, but it's not fair that they won't have a say in making it. We should lower the voting age because they will have a say in making the laws, which is not only fair, but it can then also benefit the US. If 16-year-olds are doing everything an 18-year-old are politically doing, then they should be able to vote for the president as well. My evidence is that young people have shown an interest in voting. In 2013, when Tacoma Park, Maryland lowered its voting age to 16, registered voters under 18 had a turnout rate 4 times higher than voters over 18. And again in Hyattsville, Maryland, the second place in the US to lower the voting age to 16, the registered 16 and 17-year-olds had a higher turnout rate than older voters. 17-year-olds also had a higher turnout rate than people aged 20 to 50 in the Chicago primary in 2014. If 16-year-olds are doing everything an 18-year-old is doing in the political way, they should also be able to vote. My source is youthrights.org. My impact is that the voting age should be lowered to 16 because with a lot of evidence supporting this, they can actually have an impact in the laws the US and other countries make. This makes the country or the world a better place because teens will vote for the best president and the president can do something to make the world or a country a better place. My second contention is allows teens to learn about politics, which can help them in the future. My reasoning is that with teens being able to vote, it can teach them about the responsibility for voting, and this skill can be very useful in the long run. We believe it is good to lower the voting age to 16 because with that, it encourages more and more teens to do research about the candidates, which maybe can make them learn more and more things about how democracy works. My evidence is that recently the voter turnout for people under 25 has not looked good. Turnout of American voters under 25 at a presidential elections fell from 50% in 1972 to 38% in 2012. Among over 65-year-olds, it rose from 64% to 70%. For congressional rates, the under 25 vote was a dire 17% in 2014. A similar pattern is repeated across the rich world. However, this could change if the voting age is lowered. As 18-year-olds are very busy in life and have lots of things to do, they would not be willing to vote, and the habit of voting would not start. Plus, they would see voting as a choice, not a privilege. Well, if the voting age is lower, then the opportunity of voting will be introduced to them when they have less to do and therefore vote. My source is vitana.org. My impact is that the voting age should be lowered to 16 because it can teach teenagers about politics and democracy. They need to do research on the candidates in order to know who to vote for. This knowledge can help them in the long run and in future elections, and this will have a big impact on society because then teens would vote for the better president, meaning that there would be more votes for the best president. And if this happens, then the country would be a better place. For a higher chance of this happening, 16 or 17-year-olds should be able to vote and do these things. Thank you, and my speech is done.
Should I start? Okay, my time starts in 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, Judge. My name is Mardini, and I'll be the first speaker of the opposition side of this debate. First, as my opponent did not do, I will define the topic and say the weighing mechanism. The topic is the voting age should be lowered to 16. The definitions are the minimum age a voter should be, and as of 2021, it is 18 due to the 26th Amendment. We do not want you to, and in this debate, we don't want you to lower the voting age. The weighing mechanism for this debate is the net benefit, which is the most amount of good for the most amount of people. First, I will refute my opponent, and then I will get into my contention. My opponent, one contention that my opponent said was that it allows teens to learn about politics. Well, teens are on social media a lot, and also social media doesn't have the um, most reliable sources and things. And so they will learn biased views, and that will not help them in any way. Now I will get into my contention. My first contention is that teens aren't mature. 16-year-olds' brains aren't fully developed, which could lead to immaturity and not good decision making. Decision making is very important when you vote. According to ihsalvaquero.com, it can be argued that many 16-year-olds are just as intellectually mature as their 18-year-old counterparts. However, if intellectual maturity is what we're seeking, then the voting age should rather really be raised. According to social scientists Catherine Ching, PhD, and Matthew Clayton DPhil, 16 and 17-year-olds would not be competitive voters because research in neuroscience suggests that the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, is still undergoing major reconstruction and development during the teenage years. Again, my source for this was ihsalvaquero.com. The impact of this, judges, is of lowering the voting age is more immature voters, and those immature voters will vote for an unprepared candidate. And that unprepared candidate will be elected, will probably most likely be elected, and that will lead to worsened qualities of life. In the net benefits, worsened qualities of life is not what we're looking for. My second contention is that they would vote randomly. 16-year-olds spend so much time doing other things like homework, learning how to drive, extracurricular activities, and etc. And then they would forget about politics. In the 2016 election, personal data from Facebook was used to influence the voters to vote for a certain candidate, according to New York Times and NPR.org. Political parties in the same manner can easily influence teens that spend their time on social media. Also, their parents' political views can also influence them. That will lead to voting randomly without proper research and understanding the candidates and their aims. Also, in many places, laws are directly passed by vote, like the proposition in California. These laws are complicated to dissect, and their impact on societies is hard to understand. According to Vitana.org, teens are more social today with the online networks than ever before. They are exposed to more information with internet access than any other generation before them. Having access to data is not the same as understanding it. With all the time pressure present on the average 16-year-old, from school to work to athletics and everything in between, they may not have enough time to thoroughly study the critical issues up for debate in an election. Having them guess at who is the better candidate is not the same as understanding the issues through discussion. Again, my source for this was Vitana.org. The impact of lowering the voting age means that they are busy and they would forget about politics. And again, social media isn't that reliable. And so they would get false and biased information. And that will also lead them to vote for someone random. And that would be bad. And that candidate might make bad policies. And that will lead to worsened qualities of life, which again, we do not want with net benefits. Because net benefits, we want the greater amount of good for the most amount of people. Thank you for listening to my speech, judges.
Can I go? Hi, my name is Andrew Howe, and I'm the second speaker for the side proposition for the topic, the voting age should be lowered to 16. First, I would like to refute to my opponent. I would like to say that 16-year-olds are smart enough to be very good voters. A group of researchers tried to determine the quality of votes cast by people under the 18 by comparing how well their votes align with the stated values. Voters aged 16 to 17 were found to have made choices that were more congruent with party positions, leading the researchers to conclude that lowering the voting age does not appear to have a negative impact on input legitimacy and the quality of democratic decisions. I would also like to say that 16-year-olds have the same code cognition as adults. So in contrast, they are as mature as adults. And also 6-year-olds have enough knowledge to make a good choice. Research shows that 16 and 17-year-olds have a necessary civic knowledge, skills, and cognitive ability to vote. The first contention is that 16-year-olds are ready to vote. My reasoning is 16-year-olds are ready to vote because they have the necessary civic knowledge to make a good vote. A common argument is that 18-year-olds have enough civic knowledge to vote, unlike 16-year-olds. This is wrong because 18-year-olds started their college, so they mustn't learn a lot, only basics of politics. This means that 18-year-olds have almost the same amount of knowledge as a 16-year-old about politics. Research shows that 16 and 17-year-olds will have the necessary civic knowledge, skills, and cognitive ability to vote responsibly. A study comparing the qualities associated with the voting, such as civic knowledge, political skills, and political interest. Among citizens 18 and older, citizens below 18 found no significant differences between 16-year-olds and those above 18. Furthermore, deciding how to vote relies on code cognition, the decision-making process in which a person deliberates alone and unhurried and draws on logical reasoning abilities. Research shows that the code cognition matured by 16 and does not improve as one gets older. The source is vote16usa.org. The impact is if 16-year-olds are ready to vote, then they should all be allowed to vote. And if they can vote, then they will research for a good president. When the election comes and all voters are done with research, there would be more votes for the best president. And this happens. And if this happens, then the better president will make the country a better place. The second contention is teens have the same skills as an adult. My reasoning is 16s and 17s can do the same things as an adult. They can have the same skills in sports. They can take care of the family. They can help farm work for their families. They have jobs. They have the same knowledge and much more. People under 18 are contributing and active members of society. Billions of us are employed and volunteer in our communities. Many people under 18 also have adult responsibilities, such as being the primary caregiver for an ailing family member, running a business, and make a sustainable financial contributions to our households. The source is nyra.org. The impact is if a teen has the same skills as an adult, then they will also be capable of knowing which president to vote for, and then the president will be better suited, and the better suited president will make the country a better place. Thank you, and my speech is done.
Okay, can I start now? All right. So, hi, my name is Arav Glorajani, and I'm going to be the second speaker on the opposition side of the topic, the voting age should be lowered to 16. First, let me start off by refuting my opponent's contentions. First, he said that 16-year-olds are as mature as adults, but research shows that their brains are still developing. Second, he said that 16-year-olds have adult responsibilities, but they can be influenced by their family's political views. Just because 16-year-olds can drive, pay taxes, it does not mean that they're responsible and mature enough to vote. Now, let me state my contentions. My first contention is a majority of Americans say that 16-year-olds should not be allowed to vote. In a democracy, the opinion of the majority is represented by our elected officials. Given that an overwhelming majority of citizens do not support lowering the voting age, then this rule must not be changed. An overwhelming majority of Americans oppose the idea of granting voting rights to citizens younger than 18. According to a Hill-Harris X poll released on Thursday, 84% of the respondents opposed allowing 16-year-olds to vote. My source is the WashingtonPost.com, and the impact is judge. If 16-year-olds vote, a majority of Americans' opinions will be ignored, which will lead to unhappiness, and this is the exact opposite of the weighing mechanism. Second, parents' political views influence 16-year-olds. 16-year-olds are usually at their parental home, where parents can influence them, while 18-year-olds are mostly out of the house in a university or college without their parents. The evidence is the Bobo doll experiment conducted by Stanford professor Albert Bandura demonstrated that children will interact with others in the precise manner modeled for them by adults. My source is The Atlantic. The impact is if 16-year-olds vote, they will get influenced by parents and family, which will lead to them voting based on their family's political views, which will lead to unfair votes. And this is not the weighing mechanism either.
Can I do a PR?
Yes.
So when you say that they can be influenced by their parents' point of views, then, well, what if they're good? Like most of the time they are good, right? So
What do you mean by good though?
yeah, like what if they do want a good president to be voted? Then isn't that good for our side?
No. Well, if they actually, let me just continue with my speech. And I'll talk about that later. So 16-year-olds are participating in my third contention is 16-year-olds are participating in politics. Participating in political events before voting is good practice for elections. According to an article published in the New York Times, in Massachusetts elections, 16-year-olds participated in the campaign for the candidate Edward Markey. My source is the New York Times, and the impact is the voting age. If the voting age stays at the voting age stays at 18, which gives more exposure to 16-year-olds, which makes them good voters by the time they are 18, which will lead to a good candidate getting picked, which is the most amount of good for the most amount of people. Thank you for listening to my speech, and I strongly urge you to vote for the opposition side of the debate.
All right, do I go? All right. So, all right. Hi, my name is Kaden Baker, and I'll be speaking for I'll be the third opposition. First, I'd like to refute my opponents. So you said that they follow the law, but what they will do is they'll just go off their family's political views. You also said that they can make it a habit, but they won't pay attention to politics. Then we'll get manipulated by one of the candidates' speech and vote for someone who isn't fit for office. You also said that they have enough knowledge about politics, but they would rather be on social media and then vote. You also said that they have responsibilities, but they can't work full-time jobs, participate in jury, and even more. All right, now I'm going to restate my reasons. As my teammate stated, older teens lack the as my teammate Merdini stated, older teens lack the maturity to vote, and older teens will vote randomly. My other teammate Aro stated that many people don't agree with older teenagers can vote, and that older teenagers will vote off their family's political views, and 16-year-olds are already participating in politics. All these reasons are for the most amount of good for the most amount of people. Now, judges, let's take a look at two different worlds. The first world is where older teens don't pay attention to politics, get manipulated by someone's speech, and vote for someone who isn't prepared for office. The second world is where people are prepared, vote for a prepared candidate, keep up with politics, and have enough knowledge of it. Now, judges, you should vote for us. We should win because we have proven that allowing older teenagers to vote is not beneficial for our government. If we allow them to vote, they might vote for someone who isn't a good candidate. They might not even vote for at all. Thank you for your time, and I strongly urge you to vote for the opposition side.
Can I start my speech? Okay. Hello, my name is Athurva Sharma, and I'm the side proposition for the topic, the voting age should be lowered to 16. So actually, I want to refute op 1 that 16-year-olds actually have enough knowledge to make a good choice. The research shows that 16 and 17-year-olds have the necessary civic knowledge, skills, and cognitive ability to vote. So the propositions were, so for the refute summary, the propositions were expected to follow the law but can't change them, can allow teens to learn about politics, helping them in future. The third one was 16-year-olds are ready to vote, and the last one was same skill as an adult. So the oppositions were the 16-year-olds aren't smart enough to make a good vote, but we already refuted them by saying that they are actually smart enough to make a good vote, and a group of researchers tried to determine the quality of votes cast by people under 18 by comparing how well their votes aligned with their stated values. Voters aged 16 to 17 were found to have made choices that were more congruent with party positions, leaving the researchers to conclude that lowering the voting age does not appear to have a negative impact on a input legitimacy and quality of democratic decisions. The second opposition was immaturity, but we already refuted them by saying that 16-year-olds have the same cold cognition as adults, so in contrast, they're as mature as an adult. Moving on to the impacts. So the first contention was that they are expected to follow the law but can't change them. The impacts for this is that the voting age should be lowered to 16 because with a lot of evidence supporting this, they can actually have an impact on the laws the US and other countries make. With this, they can also help the world have better laws and safety features which can make their country or world a better place. The next contention was can allow teens to learn about politics, helping them in the future. The impact for this is that the voting age should be lowered to 16 because it can teach teenagers about politics and democracy. And they need to do research on the candidates in order to know who to vote for. And this knowledge can help them in the long run and in future elections. And this will have a big impact on the society because then teens would vote for the better president, meaning that there will be more votes for the best president. And if this happens, then the country would be a better place. For a higher chance of this happening, 16 or 17-year-olds should be able to vote and do these things. The third contention was that 16-year-olds are ready to vote. The impact for this is that if 16-year-olds are ready to vote, then they should be allowed to vote. And if they can vote, then they will research for a good president. When the election comes and all the voters are done with their research, there would be more votes for the best president. And if this happens, then the country would be a better place. The last the third contention was that, the last contention was that they have same skills as an adult. The impacts for this is that if a teen has the same skills as an adult, they'll also be capable of knowing which candidate to vote for. So our side is bringing net benefits or the greatest amount of good to the greatest amount of people to the world because there will be more votes for the best president and this can impact the country in a good way. To world analysis. In the prop world, we'll be having a higher chance of getting a suited president, a better suited president. The president can do something that can help the country. We will even be pushing the government to serve citizens better. But in the op world, we'll be having a lower chance of getting a better president, and if that happens, then we may get a worse president. The president can do anything which may harm the country. So thank you, and this is why I strongly urge a proposition ballot.
Okay, give the judges around 5 minutes of writing the RFD and then we'll give out the ballot.
Do you guys watch anime?
Kaden not.
The only anime I watch is Pokemon.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a better anime. There's other good animes.
This is being recorded, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yes.
oh no.
Can you cut this part out of the recording?
Yeah, cut this part out, please. The amount of cringe that would be in the video.
Yeah, no, right? I think you should stop the recording.
Please, I don't want any more cringe stuff.
I think they're discussing right now.
Well, at least no, don't like stop the recording. At least
So the winner for this debate was a 3-0 decision for the proposition side of this debate. Arnav, do you want to give your RFD?
Yeah, okay. So I'd just like to start off by saying that congratulations to everyone for making it to the finals and whoever who competed into this tournament. Both teams did really well, but I voted for the proposition because I felt as if like several of the points, for example, one of the biggest disputes in the entire debate was whether that 16-year-olds have like the mental like capacity or whether their brain has been developed enough to cast a vote. And it seemed like there was conflicting evidence, and I really couldn't vote for one side or the other because both teams talked about one team talked about the prefrontal cortex, the other team talked about how they actually know more because there are like conflicting studies and different researches that have been done. So I really couldn't vote off that. And a point that a point that was brought up by the proposition side was how it makes sense how people have a right to say, like, it just like culturally makes sense to give them the right to vote because they already, for example, pay taxes, and they or like some of them can pay taxes and they drive, etc. And that point was basically the only point that was on offense that I could really evaluate, and for that reason I voted for the proposition side of the debate because everything else was either washed mostly or the other points were refuted really well. So the no team had access to them since they were refuted or they were washed. So that's why I voted for the proposition side of this debate.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, do you want to give your RFD?
Yeah, so I also voted for the proposition side. And before I start, I just wanted to say all of you guys did absolutely amazing. And it was an amazing debate that I had the pleasure of judging. And I think all of you guys are extremely talented debaters. And congratulations for making it this far. So moving on to my feedback, I ultimately voted for the proposition side for similar reasons to what Arnav kind of said. Obviously, there was contentions on both sides that I had to weigh out. But my final decision came down to impacting and kind of which side impacted their contentions out more and kind of connected it back to like net benefits, right? So I think the last two speeches is where like I finally made my decision because the opposition side like came up and refuted. Opposition third speech was like a bunch of refuting, but I didn't really see a lot of analysis from that speech and not a lot of comparison. There wasn't as much impacting as I would have liked. Whereas the proposition provided me with the two-round analysis and clearly weighed out the debate for me so I could see like which side was better than the other. And it came to be the proposition side because they clearly told me why their side was better than the opposition side. And I think the op kind of just failed to prove that their side was better than the proposition side, and you guys didn't analyze it enough or impact it out well enough for me to vote for you guys. So that's why I voted for the proposition side in today's debate.
Okay, perfect. So Like the other two judges, firstly, I want to further emphasize that great job making it to the finals. It's a huge accomplishment, and both teams in this round were more than capable of winning and will do great in the future. And choosing a winner, therefore, was super hard. However, at the end of the day, I ended up voting proposition because of dropped points. And like Arnav says, there were multiple points that the opposition did not refute that I saw. Some of them including they should have a say in laws, young people like voting, helps them learn long-term decisions, and these were just a couple that were lightly refuted or not refuted at all. Also, I saw more fleshed out impacts said by the proposition, like Dia said in the last speech, and specifically feedback is, Enming, I really liked that you covered a lot of key points. However, because of the amount of material you went over, please signpost, like say what you're talking about, like moving on to blah, blah, blah. Andrew, your refutes are very fleshed out, but please speak louder. Like it just might be a mic issue, but that's just a tip there. Atharva, I really liked your two-world analysis. The main thing would be to emphasize that the other team has dropped contentions, since that plays to your benefit by a lot, and that requires me to do no work at all, right? Okay, moving on to the opposition team. Great job to you guys as well. Mridini, great job catching the definition and weighing mechanism that the proposition did not give. However, remember to refute their contention since you did miss a couple. Arav, your speech was overall super well done. However, you might want to address the POI better and instead respond directly to it. Kaden, I liked your voice modulation on certain points, but once again, try to increase the length of your speech by going in depth with impacts which could have played to your benefit and a two-world analysis. Therefore, the proposition wins by a 3-0 vote.